Okay, this section we move on where we introduce you to these data analysis expressions or DAX formula. DAX formulas are sort of like Microsoft Excel formulas. You can write expressions, you can reference functions, uh, but they're unique to using within Power Pivot. And there really is what is going to give you the most power and the ability to do things when you're analyzing data. And uh, highly recommend putting some effort in learning this once we are introduced to this in the class. By no means are you going to be an expert in this from what we cover this week, but it's a good starting point for you. Uh, really, DAX expressions happen in two places. You write those when you want to go to your Power Pivot data sets and add additional columns. And that means that you are going to make the data file larger. And when you calculate something, it's always going to be row specific. It's going to be unique to that row. And really what you wind up doing, the purpose of this is primarily to build additional ways to cut the data that you didn't have prior. That's probably the most useful, although some of the examples that we'll do will show you that it will actually allow you to build some of these measures also. We will look at specifically looking at the related function. It's really, really slick, and I'll go in and show you how this thing can be used to pull data from one lookup table to another lookup table. So rather than filtering a lookup table down to a transaction table or a measures table, we can actually pull one data from one table into another one, and it's just it's pretty cool. So we'll do that. So we'll start out. We'll have a video that's just on calculated columns, and then we'll have another video that or videos that talk about how to write your own measures that are not, they don't necessarily reside in a data set. They're external measures. You can reference these at any time. They allow you to add additional measures in your pivot. So when you build a pivot table and you build a pivot table, this value section right there, if you can, what we'll do is we'll build some new formulas that you can drop into this. Rather than having just dropping in something like this, we'll build a standalone formula that you can drop in. And it's much more powerful than this, what we've just done. It'll make more sense when we start building some examples of this. And again, learning how to write these is going to add some serious chops to your analytical abilities. For both of these, there are DAX functions that you can reference. Just like in Excel, Excel has a lot of functions. Well, there's also a lot of DAX functions. And if you would just go Google this, I'll bring this over. This is from Microsoft's website, Dax Function Reference. And you can look at all the different functions that, and a lot of these will look like regular Excel functions. These are similar to what we've seen in the past, but there's also some new ones called like SumX. This is a different one that is, we'll spend some time going over this one. And there are also the ability to do different types of so there's some things in here that normally, so the ones that I'm going to cover in class, at least one I think, are count, distinct count, sum, divide, calculate, which is kind of an all-encompassing new way to think about things. We'll probably do a SumX and definitely the related, because I want to use the related up here. So these are functions that we'll cover. By no means is that an exhaustive list. Again, just like what I showed you before, if you look at any of these, there are many, many different DAX expressions. I'm not even close to knowing what all these are, but I tend to start down the path when I've done my consulting work using Power Pivot. I can generally go and find something that makes sense to me Filter functions are used a lot. I use these a lot. So there you go. This is the entry, and the next video we'll do a specific example on how you do calculated columns. Thanks.